The DIESOL podcast.
Digital integration in English as a second or other language.
Episode 12, interview with Professor Denise Maduli-Williams.
Hello and welcome to the DIESOL podcast, episode number 12. We are your hosts. I am Brent Warner.
And I'm Michelle Reyes.
And we have a special guest with us today, Denise Maduli-Williams. Hello.
Hi,
Denise.
how are you all?
Good. So Denise, we're going to do a brief introduction. We try and bring you on as soon as we can. So if there's anything that we say that's wrong or that you want to correct as we're going, please feel free. But just for everybody out there listening, so Denise, you have been teaching ESOL and English for more than 2 decades. That doesn't sound right.
It is right.
Is it right?
Is.
Okay. All right. I believe you. So you earned your BA in English and Linguistics from Cal Poly State University, and then you went to the Peace Corps and taught English in Botswana. After that, teaching in New York City public high schools while earning your MA in Tesol from Columbia University Teachers College. Then 15 years teaching ESOL and developmental English in community colleges in Chicago and San Francisco. And now you are an assistant. Is still assistant, or did you switch in ESOL?
I should be tenured officially by the end of this semester.
All right. So we're on the same track.
Awesome.
Cool.
We are.
And you're at San Diego, Miramar.
Yes.
Yes. So you have a long and varied history and all sorts of things. But Denise, one of the reasons that we wanted to bring you on today in particular was because things have absolutely exploded in the world.
Yes.
and gone a little nuts. And so we shifted a little bit for kind of the timeliness, and a lot of teachers are all of a sudden having to teach online or do something online with their classes, and they're either self-quarantined or semi-mandated quarantine from their schools or government at some level. There's all sorts of craziness going on with the COVID-19 stuff, but you have been teaching ESOL online for quite a while, and so it's not a brand new thing for you. And so when Michelle and I were talking, we said, well, maybe we should shift this up because a lot of people are going to need a little support, and there's definitely resources going on out there for teachers who are trying to make the transition to online, but I have not seen as much customization for ELTs and for the Tesol world and all of those things, as often happens with Edtech and us. We get left behind.
We do.
And so we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about your history of online teaching first, and then maybe just give some ideas and talk around like maybe some approaches that people can have and some ideas to help and to make it through the next few weeks or months or however long this craziness is going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky times right now, and we're trying to catch our breath and do what's best for our students and continue kind of teaching and learning. My journey into online instruction was actually when I was at City College of San Francisco, and I fell into the @ONE Educators Learning Network. And that whole process really brought me into the approach of a humanized experiential online learning environment, which is key to the success of students. But part of the issue right now is that we don't really have the time for that. We don't have the time, within the next 24 hours or whatever to build a fully online course the way that we do, when we've got the time and the experience to do that. So we're just kind of in triage mode, doing what we can. And it's especially difficult for those of us that teach English language learners because we have the technology, challenge together with the language challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the past, one thing that's been very surprising, actually, which people might I think this is something people will find out when they start doing this, is that actually online will allow every student's voice to be heard. So even though all of us in the ESL classroom, we do everything we can with pair work and group work and activities and all these to make sure that everyone gets that chance to speak and to participate. But it's very hard sometimes for introverted students or shy students or students that need more time to produce the language. And now they're going to have the time. And the first thing I noticed when I started teaching ESL or ESOL, whichever acronym you're using online, is that sometimes the quietest students were the ones who spoke first online, who posted the longest things, who revealed the most, used the most language. So it does provide an opportunity for all students to really produce and share that sometimes the classroom doesn't.
I often think about that too. I'm aware of this, that some of the introverted students speak up, but it's also interesting because sometimes you get that extroverted student in class who just kind of consumes the class, right? And
absolutely.
And it's interesting that this setup kind of, I don't know that it pulls it away, but it kind of balances it out in that certain way. Because I always think of it in terms of, okay, the opportunity grows for the extrovert, but it's also that it, for the introvert, but the extrovert themselves might also have a better sense of the balance by looking at how the interactions are going online. I think that sometimes those extroverted students don't really realize how much they're consuming of the class.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, we don't often look at it from the flip side. I just lost my train of thought. What I was thinking about, and you have mentioned so many tech tools. You started off January 2020, which seems so long ago, with some of your favorite tech tools. And some of these are just prime and perfect for language learners. VoiceThread, Flipgrid. These are all tools that are asynchronous. So you could post a question or a picture or a video or a prompt, and then students can respond through audio or through video or even text, but they're responding in their own time. They can take the time to prepare the response, practice it until they feel like it's pronounced correctly, look up any words they want to. If they're typing it, they have the chance to really wordsmith it if they want to. And then in the end, instead of hearing, a few dominant voices, you hear everyone in your class, and everyone's doing it at the time that is best for them in the most prepared way, really.
And Denise, right before we started, we were talking about how this is, we're all in one way or another right now, going through the same hardship of how to bring our material, the best of what we can online to make sure that our students have the best. And I think one of the things you mentioned is this is not truly online teaching, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if I've been trying to avoid with my kind of colleagues showing my fully online, English or ELAC, we call it English Language Acquisition at Miramar. So that's ELAC is what we call it. Trying to kind of avoid showing them a fully kind of course with all the bells and whistles and all the things, because it's just going to have to be really stripped down to, what is the activity that you want to have the students do. Maybe you just need to provide a link to a reading. Maybe they're just going to watch a short video, and then, what is your deadline, or if you even want to have a deadline for that week or whatever, for how are they going to respond? Are they going to type something in a discussion board? Are they going to post something, on a Flipgrid? But just being very careful to not overwhelm, ELAC students with too many things. The other thing that's happening online right now, which I think is wonderful, is we're all sharing all the things. And we don't want to put all the things up right now.
Right. It is overwhelming. I'm going left and right saving things, because for myself, I mean, I already use a lot of tools, but it is overwhelming. There's so much. And I think for the teachers who are just transitioning into giving it a chance and giving online tools a chance, this can be quite scary. And many of us right now don't have the full support.
Right. And then if we're feeling that way, imagine the students who maybe haven't ever had to log into if there's a learning management system, and then create another account, and then figure out if that account has an app, and then figure out, does their computer have the capacity to record with a camera? Right. And then how are they going to upload it? And then next week we're going to do a different thing. I would suggest, maybe you choose one. I mean, even in my regular online course, which is kind of fully vetted, I just use VoiceThread, and That's it, because it takes the first 2 weeks to figure out log in versus log on,
absolutely.
which makes a very big difference, because if you just click log in and you don't have an account, or no, what is it? It's sign in or sign up. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
so
right.
everyone's clicking sign in, but they don't have an account, so they have to sign up. So we go through all that, and then they can sign in. But that's like the first 2 weeks. And then after that, it's like just every week or so, we're doing the voice read. Like everyone's finally figured it out. We're not going to switch to something new mid-semester or throw in a bunch of things, because we just want to have that consistency for students.
Right. Yeah. That consistent pattern is something that I'm also going to have to work for on this class, because I mix things up a lot, and I'm like, let's try something different, right? And when I'm with the students, it's okay because I can walk around and show and like try something and see what's going on, but I'm going to have to pull back. And I know I'm also very guilty of like oversharing and being like, hey, there's this option and there's this way. And if you want to do it with this 2 degrees different this way, then this app is better, like all those types of things. And so I'm also concerned about overwhelming teachers who are new to this. So as we're kind of trying to transition our team and all of our adjunct faculty and everybody, and it's like, okay, I have ideas, but can I rein it in enough to make sure that, like the less tech savvy teachers or the people who are like, I never wanted to do this, like this is not what I was trying to get into. Like how can we help those people the best? And I do always go back to my kind of standard piece of advice is like, I'll give you a bunch of ideas, but I hope that you only take one and work with it. Because that can be, for some people, one. I mean, it's like if you say, hey, learn Google Docs, right? It's like, well, how long is it going to take to learn Google Docs, right? I mean, it's simple, and it's also incredibly complex, right? And so what's your approach to kind of well, I want to think of this on both sides, actually, just because you have the experience for you onboarding teachers and onboarding students. Like, how do you work? Let's start with teachers. How do you help teachers kind of get started with these things? And then after that, because you have these exclusive online classes where I don't think you meet the people in person at all, right? At the beginning of the class. And then, so how do you work to like help them get through that process too, if you're not together there with them?
Sure. So with teachers, I think, gosh, it's still that thing of like what you would normally want to do and then what we're doing right now because of the triage situation. Normally you want teachers to experience a community humanized online course. So if they're experiencing that as a student, and we, like, for example, at Miramar, we have kind of a Canvas shell for ESL teachers, and we try to kind of provide experiences and chances for people to try it out kind of as a student. So you're kind of seeing what that feels like. But right now, what I'm trying to do is really, really curate things for my teachers, for my colleagues, and kind of do it as like, here's like the most basic. If this is new for you and you're overwhelmed, like take a deep breath and try these, these are the 2 things you've got to know. Like if we are going to use Canvas, which you're not required to, but if you are, you want to know how students can submit assignments, and you want to maybe know a discussion board, like just like very basic. But like then we have the teachers that have been using Canvas as a supplement, but now have to use it fully online. So what are some things that you want to add to it? So you want to add, how can students do peer review? How can you, and now, maybe do a timed essay if you feel the need, like you want to do something timed. And then you have those teachers who have been using it for a very long time, but perhaps want to know I've been getting very, very specific questions that show kind of like the level of expertise of teachers. But so kind of tailoring that, and I've been trying not to send out, on the email listserv, like all the things for online, because really it's like, take a deep breath, figure out how to log in, figure out how to set, a basic assignment so that students can submit something and that you can communicate, which is really the most important thing. Like, are you communicating with students? Do students know that you're there, that they know how to reach you, and they kind of know, how regularly are you going to be communicating with them? I think is important. I keep losing my train of thought, but in terms of communication, I think we have that whole thing of, in a regular online class, you never meet the students. So I'm telling people now, like, we have a 6-week jump on this. I usually got to build community from like nothingness, and like here I am, you know, waving and doing things and making them do videos. But I've just been in the classroom with them for 5 weeks. We already have that community, so now we just need to extend it to the online environment and just appear right away as soon as you can and say, here I am, I'm still here, we're going to find a way to make this work. But we have a very big jump on what it normally is like when you start from the ground up in an online class.
And so I think you have you're working with the same students, just transitioning to online, correct?
Exactly.
And Brent,
yes.
are you also with
are
the same
you doing
class?
the same?
I am doing the same thing. Yeah. So
Okay.
I was able, I could kind of see the fireball coming towards us. And so I was able to talk to the students in class last week and a little bit the week before and said, hey, if this is starting to happen, like, let's prepare a little bit. So I actually took my students, we're using Zoom as our kind of default video program. And so I was able to onboard my students with Zoom in class together.
That's awesome.
Which, you know, like talking them through it a little bit, it wasn't always perfect, but at least they were either getting it for themselves or they were able to see the person next to them getting it. And so they have some idea and a little bit of a sense of it. And I was even able to share the breakouts, you know, as a brief concept. And so we were able to test a few little things in class, which really, you know, I hope it made them a little bit more comfortable when they know that this is coming. And then the timing of our school just happened to be that we stopped and then we went right into spring break. And then the announcement came basically on the Friday before spring break. Hey, we're not coming back after spring break. So it's like we have a kind of a nice thing, which is a buffer of a week to prep and to set up and come up with ideas and, you know, some of those types of things, but it's still not enough, right? I mean, it's not enough to just completely change everything. And so I'm still interested and, you know, a little concerned about how my students are going to be able to log in. There's a major problem with, you know, a lot of my students are moms and dads, right? And now their kids are out of school and they have to watch their kids. And so they can't log in at 9:30 in the morning to 12 o'clock. And, you know, they have to watch their 3-year-old and their 4-year-old, and their kids aren't going to go, oh, you're in class right now? I didn't know. I'll just leave you alone quietly. Right. And so, so now we've got these conversations around like synchronous and asynchronous, right?
Yeah.
And I am going to continue running my class synchronously with the understanding that some of my students won't be there and they will be able to watch the video later and kind of participate with some of the things after participate with most of the things after the fact. And I'm still trying to sort that out, but I don't want anybody to feel punished or anybody to feel that they're missing out on things because they can't make it at the time which was designated, but now through no fault of anyone's, right? It's just this massive chaos, and how do we continue? But I also don't want them to lose the class. I don't want them to lose their education, right? And so, it's. I was feeling better earlier, and now that I explained it.
Well,
as we talk more,
if it makes you feel any better, in my institution, we get students maybe new every week, new every 2 weeks, new every 4 weeks, new every 2 weeks. So some tomorrow in my institution will be starting for the first time without having been. And it's just like you said, some of our students have never logged in. So we are just going to do the best that we can. And like you 100%. Said, use a couple of tools as to not overwhelm instructors or students, because at the end of this, I think, you know, in some ways this will highlight, you know, I'm trying to remain positive and optimistic about what this highlights is areas that we need to work on. Probably as teachers, as organizations, as leaders. And at the end of all of this, hopefully we can take away something that we've learned through this experience, because it's definitely going to be something that sticks with us at the end, right? And so we want it to be, I hope that, I mean, I'm going to love tech no matter what, but there's going to be the people who, this is not really how they wanted to teach, but hopefully by that end, they'll have learned another skill that they now maybe find value in and apply. Right.
Yeah. I think that, teachers that have been supplementing with at least a little bit of technology along the way have a little foot in, right? Because you might have been doing it as an assignment or an option, and now you're testing it. You tested the waters a little bit. You didn't want to go all in, and maybe you never were, but now you have to. You have to. And just to speak to a couple things that both of you mentioned in terms of the synchronous Zoom, man, I am also in an EDD program. And this past Saturday, our professor from Cal State San Marcos, had us all Zoom in, and we're all, professionals in the field, adults, and, people had kids. My dog barked. I'm in my bedroom because I've got 2 teenage sons that are also going to be, home from school, also learning. Luckily, my family, we have enough computers to go around, right? But a lot of my students, they're shared. So I think finding out, asking students what works best or what they're working with at home. But I just think from just a human equity-minded issue, requiring mandatory synchronous Zoom sessions for a long period of time is just very difficult. And like what you said, Brent, where you can record them so that people can watch them later and figure out what's best. But I will say that sitting on Zoom for 4 hours on Saturday was a very long class. And you really think about like, what are you doing? I mean, I think it's fantastic for checking in and doing certain things, definitely the breakout rooms, but our components of what you were normally going to do on Zoom are those things that could be done on their own time. Like for you, Esol, Flipgrid would be great because students coming and going. And so that Flipgrid is always there, and you just have an introduction one, so whoever's coming in can introduce themselves and people will pop in and see the new students. And if someone's Wi-Fi is down that day, or they're sharing it with their kid, or they can do it whenever they need to. But in the end, everyone is able to see each other in the introduction Flipgrid.
Right. And I think a key aspect here to remember is flexibility. I've seen as I'm reading on Twitter what other teachers' experiences are, because we just started today, and I don't know how many other teachers are going to be starting in the next week, et cetera. Grading, I think grading came up. There's going to be some assignments that we're going to have to make a judgment call on, or maybe ethical. I don't even know what it's going to be, but I have. So, for example, my students brought up a good point today. So our internet's going to be overloaded. Our servers are not going to work. Perhaps some students have different data plans, and that's how we're functioning. So they're worried that their attendance, because they're international students, so their attendance is gonna be an issue if they can't log in at the time when they're supposed to. And I said, it's okay. Right. It's okay. Just know that I know that this is what's going on, and it's okay. But my students are genuinely concerned. Like, what if I can't log in because we're having problems right now, and we're going to have problems. So expecting that ahead of time and knowing that it's not going to be perfect every day. And also, I mean, I don't know how schools that have students for 6 hours, how that works. Because as you said, 4 hours on Zoom.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I just think it is very difficult to like blow up that box of like you're only doing work if you're staring at each other on the computer screen. So that if there's 6 hours that day or that week or whatever, they're doing it. You've designed assignments, activities that they're doing a reading, they're posting something, they're writing something, they're viewing something, and then they're, adding their video or whatever they're doing is taking that time. That's the time right there. That's online learning. That's the attendance. That's, your accountability, if that's your concern. But I think absolutely just letting go of that.
This is really interesting then. So, so I guess kind of what we're getting at is one thing that maybe teachers preparing for all of this really need to kind of reconsider their lesson plan outline. They can't just apply the same outline that they've had in the past, right? Okay, now I'm gonna talk to you for 15 minutes, and then you guys are gonna work for 30 minutes, and I'm just gonna sit here and watch you. You know what I mean? Like all those types of things.
Right.
So those kind of disappear, and so then how can you compress what you're actually like, what you need to be in front of everybody for, versus what they can kind of do on their own or what they can do at their times by themselves? and then plan and prepare that for each of your lessons. So perhaps, you know, I have a 2.5 hour class twice a week, or all of my classes are like that, right? So this was a conversation that we had with our department too, is like, I don't need to be staring at you guys or talking to you guys for all of that time, right? So maybe my synchronous part becomes an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is. And then, as I said, recorded, right? But then there are also the asynchronous parts, and we want to kind of think carefully about like what should be synchronous and what should be asynchronous, and then how do we best set that up for our students as well?
Yeah, I think for me, this is just for me, very little actually needs to be synchronous. So let's say in an ELAT class, ESL class, normally we would do like a come in, do like kind of I'm thinking my speaking and listening class. Kind of like a get to know you, or not a get to know you, but we always do like around the room, how you're feeling, or some kind of check-in, right? And then we usually do some kind of pre-listening activity, like in groups or something, where before you're getting ready to listen to something, and then we view something as a class, or we listen to something, and then we get back in groups to talk about it, and maybe later they have some comprehension questions or some homework or something related to that topic, and these kind of build up and then lead to a presentation later.
Right.
So if I think about that, what actually needs to take place live? So they could do some kind of video check-in that's not live, where they post there's a question regarding the topic, and they like post a discussion board post, and they're interacting with each other that way, or they're doing it on a Flipgrid or a VoiceThread. Then they're definitely going to view that on their own time. There's no need for me to sit on Zoom and I play the video, and we all like, no, there's the link, watch it when you can. And then perhaps there's some questions or a response or something that can also take place asynchronously, right? So thinking about, well, then what would work? What's the most important moment of coming together is probably to build community, to see each other, to talk briefly about, you know, whatever the topic is. And I think that's definitely worthwhile. But I definitely think that most of that lesson, and let's say even I was going to lecture on something, I wanted to get across something about note taking, because we're doing, you know, listening and speaking class. I spent a lot of time talking about academic lectures and how to take notes. There's no need for that to be synchronous really either. I could record a screencast, or I can record a PowerPoint, or however, of these things I want to get across about note taking, and then they can watch that on their own.
Yeah, and actually,
really thinking about, you know, what, for me, it's always like, it's hard. It's going to be super hard for people to get on Zoom all together at the same time.
Yeah.
So really, like, which parts are most important? And I do think definitely connecting and seeing each other is a big part of that. But thinking very carefully about what other parts are needed.
So in terms of the lecture, one thing I'm really happy about is that we have, in the California community colleges, we all have access to Play Pause It now, right? Which is, so if you have a lecture, you can just pop in some discussion points and some questions and you know, quizzes and all those things. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm aiming for in terms of like, you know, getting rid of my lecture. But we're also, the part of this conversation is ultimately kind of going to a flipped model, but a flipped model, right? So so everything's, you know, you do this stuff asynchronously, go watch the videos, and then we're going to come, but there, or for however long we are together, if we're able to get together, right? But then you still have that interesting question of like, well, you know, have they done that work? Because then that really minimal amount of time that we have to be together becomes quite important, right? And it's like, okay, well, our opportunity to bond together and to work together through these things. So it's interesting that you're talking about the conversation class, because I've also got well, yours is a speaking class. I'm not sure. Mine's an actual conversation class for adult ESL. And their whole purpose for coming to that class is to like sit next to each other and chat.
Sure.
And like, you know, they're like older members of the community, and they're just wanting their opportunities to talk to each other. And so I talked to them on Friday about it. I said, well, what do you guys want to do? Because this is quite a different thing than, you know, my academic writing class is one thing, right? But where they want to come together and talk to each other and get that response, like that feedback and response, because that's the synchronous part, right? Because I could say go on Flipgrid and you're going to say something, but you're not going to get the instant feedback necessarily, right? And so I'm just fascinated. I'm still mulling over in my head how I'm going to deal with that. I mean, my current suggestion was, let's see how many of us can get together and get us into breakout rooms as quickly as possible, so you guys can share. I
think the breakout rooms are awesome on Zoom, and they work really well. And I think that's exactly what you do, is gauge your class and your students. So you are able to do that and find out that that is super important to them, and, you know, find ways to make that work so that they can participate in synchronous learning. I actually just talked to, I know that you know, my colleague and friend at City College of San Francisco, Daimudra, and she has a non-credit ESL class, and she told me that she has a lot of experience with online teaching as well, and was thinking, you know, less synchronous, especially for that population. But just like your class, Brent, they really wanted that. So she met with them, I think she said today on Zoom. They all got on, they were really excited, and they let her know, like, we want to make sure that we can have this component every week, not, you know, every day or whatever. And but that is an important part for them.
Yeah, I also try to frame everything I do in my classes as an experiment and like an opportunity for bigger learning. So it's not just about like it's not the ESL thing, right? It's like, okay, well, now we're having a chance to live in the 21st century, and how can we communicate, and how can we use these skills to help us better survive in our next thing? So if I have to get a job, you know, I'm building my skills to be able to speak English well enough to get a job. But then all of a sudden my job is work from home, right? Do I know these skills? Am I able to navigate in those ways? And so to me, all of that becomes, you know, super important. And
I've heard you mention that in several episodes. And I think that is just the most important mindset to have and to share with our students, of like, we are just experimenting and trying things. And I'm always like, if something's going to go wrong, just be, you know, expect it, but we'll figure it out and we'll work through it. And then kind of modeling that for them, so there's not a big freak out when it does happen. Because I'm seeing a lot of memes about teachers, like, you know, on Zoom thinking their screen, but they're not, or like talking. Like, if you really want to know, just look on TikTok, then you'll see what's really happening. I'm a college student. But you know, all those things are happening, and we just have to like, but I'm still here to try my best.
So Denise, I know that we've talked about this before, well, in person, but you've done, you do a lot of stuff on your Instagram account. And I think that's really cool. And I think I don't know if you're using Clips, the app, or if you're actually using just the Instagram, the video, text, like the text. So could you maybe describe those activities or the little snippets that you have up there for our listeners?
Yeah, so I did start the Instagram account a couple years ago, and I would say that it's really fun to see. I'll post something, and I'll also email a similar thing out, and then I'll see right away all the views that come on Instagram, and I'm like, I bet no one opened their email. So I started using that because I realized students were on that, you know, more often. And what I really love about Instagram is that now I have students from past semesters that still, you know, get on there and they'll comment, or I'll see them on campus, or they'll shoot me an email that they saw the latest thing and they're like, oh, I remember when we did that assignment. So I think it's really great for long-term community building in Instagram. It's very fast and easy for those of us that use it. But I have been posting videos using the Clips app, which is unfortunately right now only an iOS app, Clips. It is free though, and you can record short videos, and they are auto captioned and very easy to edit and correct. And you can do funny things too, like add stickers and change the kind of the frame or add a fun filter. But I will just record a one take imperfect video, walking my dog or across campus, or now I guess I'll be in my house just to say hi and what's going on. Quickly edit it, add a couple stickers, and then send it right to my Instagram. And it takes a matter of minutes. It's really fun and fast. And then I do also download it to my camera roll and then send it out to my students through Canvas, which is what we use, and it hits their email. But I do think that students see it faster and first on the Instagram. And I don't do anything serious. Like, I'm not giving them the instructions for the final exam or like the essay, prompt. I'm just letting them know I'm there and around. And I think with what's happening right now, that will become even more important.
Right.
Yeah, that ability to connect with the students. I watched you doing that. I'm like, I should be doing that with my account.
I know. Me too. It's like,
But then I will. This is dumb, but I'm also like, my account's kind of more like. I mean, my students do actually look at my account, but it's kind of more for teachers than it is for students, right? And so now I'm like, should I shift it and like try to, because in a certain way, I care more about my students than. Sorry, guys.
I've actually been having that problem lately. Like, I used to just post it more so for students, but then in light of things, I've been kind of posting things for teachers, and now I did think to myself, this is starting to get a little muddled. So that right now I have it as, it is supposed to be for students, but I know that teachers are on there too. So it is, but I already have 3 Instagram accounts. I'm like, do I add another separate? Because I have my personal one is completely separate and students don't follow that one. It's not public. So that is one thing just to consider with social media, how, definitely think of your different audiences and what you might want to share.
And I think, students do use Instagram, and I thought about that before, but I kind of wanted my Instagram to be like a teacher thing or just sort of for me. So my students prefer Snapchat. And that's awesome. I use Snapchat just to send them like, hey, it's a Monday morning. On Monday morning, we have a briefing. So have a happy Monday morning briefing, or silly things. Or don't forget to pick up your cigarette butts, when you're smoking outside. Just little things like that. And here and there, I think my students have shared it with their friends who are also in the same institution, and then students will come up to me when they see me like, oh yeah, I saw your post, and it builds
and they're not
like
even
this,
in your class.
And it's like, okay, I hope you picked up your cigarette butts, but it does build community, and it does give them, I feel like it gives them a little bit of an outlet. I find that right now Twitter is inundated with stuff. Everybody's just venting and letting things out, but I think it's important that we also give our students a place where they can have that outlet, because there's a lot of them are going to be either away from home, away from families, or if they're not, they're maybe working 2 jobs, or they have kids that are at home now that are also maybe English learners, and there's just so much going on in their lives as well. So it's our job. It's not just being a language teacher, right? Even in when things are quote unquote normal.
Yeah. And I think and I like how you kind of separated those out. I think that's smart. Figure out which kind of social media tools students are using most, and that works best for you. And then that can be like Snapchat's the one you use for that, whereas Twitter might be where you're getting stuff with teachers, and just making that distinction. I think that's great.
Right. And then your students go and find out that you have the same handle for every social media, and then they find you on Twitter, and they retweet things which they're teacher directed things, but hey,
funny.
That's fine. If they like it, they like it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Denise, as we're kind of coming closer to an end here, we're still dealing with this, right? This is not going to be a thing that's going to end quickly, one way or another. We're going to be kind of dealing with the repercussions of it or anything. But a lot of teachers very soon are going to be stepping into their first online class. And we know we kind of said, okay, let's not overwhelm, let's not do all those things. But if you could suggest, if you're just going to say, hey, there's one tool that I just think that people should be looking at or considering to implement to help out their students the best, what would you say it would be? Or, I mean, at least at this particular moment of recording. I know that changes from moment to moment.
Gosh, that's a tricky question. I mean, I guess it will depend on the access you have and what you want to do. I mean, obviously Zoom is the tool for kind of synchronous videoing. I think that Flipgrid is probably one of the best for asynchronous. video posting. I love VoiceThread. VoiceThread, I don't think they're one of the tools that's free yet. A lot of EdTech companies have been coming through with lots of, support for all of us. But VoiceThread is also wonderful, but you need to pay for it past a certain point. One thing we haven't talked about, I really like Padlet. Padlet, here's the best thing about Padlet is that you do not need an account.
Yes,
Students do not. Yes. So you just post a Padlet and then you click the little pink plus button and they can add a link, a picture, a video, and there's literally no sign up. So that is amazing. The downside, unless they have changed, and maybe they will, you can only make 3 Padlets, kind of for your free account to start. And then you pay for more. And I think, if that's a tool that you decide you're going to use a lot, you would want more. I ended up using 3 right away. But those are some things to start with. And then just don't forget your phone. I mean, just record a quick video, upload it to YouTube, it captions it, and you can get that out to students very quickly.
Great that you brought up Padlet, because Esol actually talked about Padlet on a Flipgrid that we set up just before the show. So we asked, we thought that it might be useful for some people to just kind of share with each other, kind of the DIESOL crew people, to have a Flipgrid that's especially for the ELTs and everybody. And so we set up a couple of grids inside of one, and we asked, said, hey, if you have an idea for speaking or for listening or reading or writing or just general support for people, there is a Flipgrid out there that we made, and we'd encourage anybody to go in and look at them or add to them. And I was able to grab flipgrid.com/DIESOL. DIESOL.
All right.
Or you could, and then just in case, if you get that mixed up, I'm also going to make it so that it's diesel.org/Flipgrid. So one way or another, you can flip it around and go, Denise, we'd love for you to add to it 1 or 2 ideas.
I definitely will.
But it's open for all the listeners and for everybody to jump in and kind of, because everybody comes up with different ideas. And again, we don't want to overwhelm with that you have to do everything, but we do want to share with each other, and we want to build a community of people who can have an opportunity to talk to and learn from each other. So we do have a Flipgrid over there, and we hope that you will take a look at it. Okay, so Denise, we know that you listen to the show sometimes, and so we have a section called the Fun Finds, which is some of the interesting things that we've been enjoying recently. We'll let you think about yours, but Esol, are you ready to go with your Fun Find?
Yes. No.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, you go.
Okay, so you do the makeup stuff and all those, like the primping and the priming and those types of things. But I today am going to do a man primping, which is a beard oil.
Beard oil.
Good fellow beard oil. Yeah, I've been growing out my beard a little bit, quite a bit, and it's getting fairly long, and it's with I've been told that the beards are not the most sanitary, so I'm gonna probably have to shave it off fairly soon. But what I didn't know is that there's a whole world of like beard maintenance. Yeah, there's like a whole community about it, like, and they're all about like the different kinds of brushes and the different ways of like styling it and all these things. So anyways, I ended up getting this beard oil called Goodfellow Moroccan mint and cedar, and it's a kind of a
fancy.
Yeah, it's a gentle smell, and it's kind of helps tame the beard for any beard growers out there. I know that's not the two of you, but anybody else out there who might be growing a beard, and if you're choosing not to shave during these crazy times, possibly just because you don't have enough time to shave. I like this one pretty well. Goodfellow beard oil.
Okay, well, kind of going along in that same facial care genre, my fun find is neck scare blemish covers.
Okay.
And since we have a lot of time to take care of our face these days, since we'll be at home, but these are little tiny patches. They're clear and they go on, they tell us that acne ends when you're after your teenage years, but that is a lie. So you can place one of those on an area where you're feeling like you're going to get a zit or something, and it'll actually absorb the grease, and it's really gross and amazing at the same time when you remove it 4 hours later. And they're pretty cheap on Amazon. And I know since we can't really go out and purchase things, this is kind of a fun thing to get in, kind of a fun thing to try in the middle. Yeah,
lots of fun. Okay.
Get your beard, get your blemish patches.
All right.
I love it.
All right, Denise, what do you got for us?
Okay, so I haven't listened to every single episode, so I'm not sure if anyone has mentioned the Headspace app before.
Oh, no, I've used it though.
All right. Okay. So I think this is very good for us right now. Headspace is a meditation app, and they have just released a free selection of, I'm looking at it, of meditation, sleep, and other meditation experiences designed to support you during the current global crisis.
Wow.
So they have between 3 to 10 minutes meditations for feeling stressed, walking at home, and also focus. And I listened to one last night for sleep because I could not.
That's so important because right now a lot of us are going to be stuck at home, and where else do you go relax and forget about things since you can't really go out? So that's great. So Headspace.
I love
Headspace.
It. We're the DIESOL is the ESL and self-care podcast for all your
self-care. Pamper yourself.
Take a turn there.
Michelle, we've got some good news, some new news, some real news.
Yeah. Some
international travel news from Canada. We're not allowed to travel right now, but we have joined the Voice Ed Canada program and show.
And so that is, you can access via the web. That's at voiced.ca, I believe, right? Voiced.ca.
But
and
VOICED. Right. It's not VOICEED.
Right. Correct. VOICED.
Right.
.ca for Canada. And that is Ed Radio on demand.
24 hours.
So, 24 hours.
Yeah. Carol Salva asked us to get on early, and we finally got on, and we talked to Stephen
Hurley, right?
Yeah. And he's awesome. I mean, I'm really excited about this and his vision for helping have 24/7 education talk all the time.
So you can download the app. They have an app, and you can see what their programming is, and then listen to that show. There's a lot of stuff to go through, and you can listen to other instructors. It's just awesome. It's really awesome. So
I'm really excited about
now.
it. I didn't know totally, and then after we talked to him and saw what was going on, it's like, oh, this is really great.
Yeah.
So I'm really
and his
excited.
philosophy about bringing all of this to teachers out there and doing it for free. This is amazing. So check it out.
Yep, there we are. So we are on, and I hope that you find some other great shows too.
So this time, our winner of our enamel pin goes to Heidi Linguist.
All right.
Who left us a review on Apple Podcasts. She writes, she gave us 5 stars. So thank you, Heidi. Great resource for teachers. Esol and Brent help you cut through the clutter when it comes to Edtech. Great reviews, friendly hosts, and informed opinions on using technology in the classroom. Highly recommended. So Heidi, if you are out there and you are listening to this, please contact us. I think we know who you are, but
is that maybe Heidi from?
Please contact us. I think
it could be Heidi from Vocab Victor, maybe.
From Vocab Victor, I think. So Heidi, if that's you, please contact us, and we'll get that pin to you.
Cool. Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks so much for listening to the show. If you want to get a one-of-a-kind DIESOL pin, please let us know. Leave us a review in the Apple iTunes. That one's great, or anywhere else where you have a chance to drop a review. And Denise, you are also going to get a pin, so we'll make sure to send one off to you.
Thank you.
One of the few pin holders in the near future. We'll as long as the post is still running, you will get your own pin.
Oh my goodness.
We'll go with digital badges.
Yeah.
Right.
To find out more on this episode, please check our show notes at diesel.org.
And you can find us, of course, on Twitter. That's where we like to hang out. So you can find the show at DieselPod, and you can find me at Brent G. Warner.
You can find me, Esol, at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY. And Denise.
Oh, I always forget my actual handle. This is terrible. So
D Maduli-Williams.
My educator Instagram is at Professor Madwill, and my Twitter is at D Maduli-Williams.
Okay, and those are both the ones you prefer to be for people to contact you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, in Setswana, thank you is Ke Aliboho. So Ke Aliboho for tuning in to the DIESOL podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so
See you
much.
soon.
All right.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Take care, you all.